we're lucky in Bay Ridge because of the ridge in Bay Ridge keeps us, at a higher elevation. That has protected us from, Hurricane Sandy, even though the neighborhoods around us weren't as lucky. Most of the stuff under our feet is over 100 years old and operating long past its useful life expectancy. So what we are seeing is as the storms get stronger and more frequent and more extreme, seeing a lot of sunny day flooding, but we're also seeing that when these storms are giving us dumping rain on us that's over 2 inches an hour, there's not a storm drain in the world that can handle 2 inches of rain an hour, and we're seeing that more and more. So we're getting, obviously more complaints and concerns from folks about that we weren't seeing as much of decades ago, or at least I had never heard about it.
I think that we've had more storms, especially, since Sandy. We've had just a lot of storms in our area. I know that when I was on the board, our insurance increased, even though we're not in a flood zone. Um, there's been damage to a lot of buildings, trees, just everything. So it impacts everybody financially one way or another, whether or not, no, you believe that it's affecting you.
We are definitely having heavier storms. I do feel like the storms in Bay Ridge are more consequential than they have been in the past. Usually we would have like one or two really bad summer deluges, and now it feels like every spring we have stuff that's overwhelming the drains outside my house.
I definitely noticed a lot more flooding along roads, like along highways. Growing up, I only remember them on the corners by like in residential areas and not necessarily down any of the highways.
So it went on go, coming up from the shore and from Staten Island, and then I think went Bay Ridge Avenue in between Third and Fourth, and then it crossed. Essentially, it crossed the street at the crosswalk and came diagonally towards us, and it did not hit the muffler shop or the gas station, and then it wreaked havoc on that part of Sunset Park and farther north. Um, the first and most important thing was, shockingly, for a church that was on Fourth Avenue, and it was right before rush hour, nobody was hurt by the glass, which in itself is something of a miracle. But it created quite a media storm. And I think we were sort of symbolically interesting, so the media kept talking to me. Even though there were a lot of people that were now without home and without belongings, and some that were not able to ever go back into a home because their apartments weren't deemed safe by the city or other. One of the people that was there in the media that kept wanting to talk to the church and other came and walked around a bit with me and said that what happened to us is, as the wind was swirling in the tornado, it came in the south side of our building and the smaller windows on the side of the sanctuary, and then it continued to swirl inside the sanctuary. And then he said, as what it will do is almost like a balloon as the air comes in. If you were in your home, the reason they had their roofs popped off was that was an easier surface area to pop off. But we have this 20 plus foot stained glass window in the front of our church that was its outlet. So it spun until it popped out the window, and that's why all the glass was on the street.
One of the things that I noticed during my tenure on the board was the constant change in temperature from being below freezing to, below 32, sometimes in the 20s one day, and then a few days later it will be in the 60s. I think that there's an impact on the facades of most buildings in the Northeast because of these temperature changes. The contraction of well, for our building, it's bricks, and that's a lot of co-op buildings in New York City. The temperature drop will make the bricks contract a little bit, and the warmth will make them expand, and that sort of stresses the facade, so that every 5 years we have to every co-op in the city, every building in the city has to comply with local law 11 and have their facades checked for structural damage, just problems with the facade in general. Most red bricks lifespan are supposed to be anywhere from 70 years to 200 years. And I think that most buildings end up having to replace a lot of bricks much sooner. The building that I live in is about 70 years old, and we have had quite a bit of facade damage to our building, and not necessarily because the bricks were not sound, but it's, cracks in the mortar, cracks in the bricks, and I believe, although I'm not, a scientist, but I believe that climate change, the constant change in the temperature has a lot to do with the health of the bricks on the facade. So that's an impact that I think that people don't think about right away. Like, how does climate change affect me? It's probably affecting the structural aspect of your house.
Either better source preservation or for building management to acknowledge that there needs to be infrastructure updates. Yeah, major infrastructure updates, especially for storms. I know that my sister has also had issues with her apartment building where exterior leaks have just started really penetrating the interior of the apartment. And it's just a hassle. The management isn't doing much about it.
We've lost, I would say, probably more than half the trees in the neighborhood have gone. And even with the replacement trees that have, been planted, it's just not the same.
One of the things that we have experienced with a farm that is just an hour and a half up the Hudson River is that they will talk about the fact that it's so much harder to plant because you don't know when a freeze is going to be. It might be warmer in general, but it's also weirder in particular. So it may be the case that you get a freeze in May that you never would have gotten before. And so it creates volatility in the system and makes it harder. It makes us all vulnerable.
The heat kills a lot of things. Okay. I don't have enough shade anymore, and the sun is too hot to grow lettuce. The rain causes moisture, something called powdery mildew, which is really bad for plants, and it became very difficult to grow and blossom around on my tomatoes. Just strange stuff that never happened before, and I think part of it is the soil was probably a little bit worn out, but the other thing was the extreme heat. And with the heat and when it rains a lot, you get the mold and you get the mildew, and it just ruins anything that you're growing. One thing to add, the things that we've seen that have started to come up that didn't come up before. And one of those is the asters. And there are asters, I have them here, I have them there, I have them over there.
We had a lot of rain, and then I guess the way the soil is, too much water within it, and then that'll do too. You'll get root rot, and then you'll get the tomatoes. That's what, and the excess water really affects the tomatoes the most. So I really haven't seen it do it that like with peppers or any of the other kind of vegetables here.
There were so many more trees. And in the park, there used to be apple trees. Yeah, apple trees all over, and probably a couple of pear trees too. But the pear trees, I think, were mostly gone by the time I remember. But the apple trees were all over the place, down especially by the that building that's down there. What is that building? Where the bathrooms are.
Oh
And
yeah, the little
the
park.
store.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were down by there mostly. And in the summer, they'd fall off the trees and they'd lay there and they'd rot a little bit. And between the dogs scooping them up and eating them, but the birds and squirrels would come by, and they'd get drunk. and you'd see these drunk birds, oh, walking around like, and it was very amusing, but you worried about them.
The other thing is the wildlife. Okay, when we first started out here in the garden, there was um more wildlife. We had raccoons that used to visit the garden. We used to have possums that visit gardens. Different types of birds, robins, blue jays. Unfortunately, now we don't see that anymore. So I don't know if it's because the neighborhood's being built up for pesticides or the construction. But right now we only see unfortunately rats. We used to have blue jays here, but I don't think I've seen a blue jay in Brooklyn in over 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I remember how many trees we used to have, and on my corner there used to be this big old elm tree, and on the opposite side of Shore Road there used to be another elm tree, and they grew towards each other and over the years, and it was just so beautiful that you would see them like reaching out to each other. And it was a huge, huge canopy. And it was just beautiful. And now the weather came and blew them away, and the Dutch elm disease came, and that canceled them, and they were never replaced.
Part of the theology of the Reformed tradition is this notion that if God has made all of creation, and in the first act of creation, it says that God is treated humans as if they're a little lower than angels and has given them dominion over. Too often, that term has been misinterpreted because of English understandings of dominion and taken it to domination, as if we're called to dominate the planet.
Right.
When in fact, the term is more about stewardship and care, a recognition of the of power that humans have, but their ideas, they're they're given a special role to care for all of creation that all might thrive. And so the church and the world have done that poorly, especially the Western world.
Renewable energy is the future. I mean, oil and gas is it's finite, whereas alternative energy is not. So we've done a lot. The city has done a lot, but we can do more. And I think the city has an opportunity here to really lead the charge and be an example.
That's the kind of future I'd want to see, where we do composting and we do recycling, and there's more flowers and plants, maybe some fruit bearing trees that people could eat from.
I think it's going to be really hot and humid, and I would hope that we would have enough green energy to handle that so that we don't all fry to death.
I think it's going to be really hot and really humid. I also think we will have to plant different types of trees that are more easily surviving hurricanes and heat and drought and humidity and all the things I think we're facing. I don't think it's going to be great.
What's going to happen in a few years when, the seas are rising. And all those people that are in those now new houses are going to have to move back and move forward, then they're going to have to, it's a capitalist dream, It's like every 10 years, we can just build up what gets destroyed instead of building something that can last for a long time. So I think with strong community, we had more of a chance of fighting back and having a voice.
I would love to see the city infrastructure be upgraded, the entire city sewer grid be upgraded. It's so outdated, and that's the reason we're having so many problems. But I think it starts with messaging, where we just talk to people and just have people admit that this is a problem. There's many people in the city, many politicians who run the city who don't think that anything is changing. I think it kind of starts there. There's going to come a point in time, whether we're here or not, that they're going to be forced to. So it's better to start thinking ahead, 50 years and 100 years. Don't just wait until we have another big flooding event and everybody points fingers at each other. Yeah. We know it needs to be done. They just need to start doing it.
My hope for the future is to see the community come together more, and first acknowledge what's going on and be able to help each other out as these things actually start happening. But more so, pressure our politicians, pressure the landlords to start building better infrastructure, both to deal with the floods and to have a better green energy system throughout.